Hey, Michael here with a quick note ahead of the episode. Abby and I recorded this episode in the Central Library in downtown Indianapolis, and the study room that we were given had a really loud AC unit. I, for some reason, was pretty confident that I could record through it and sort of do some editing later to reduce that background noise, but it absolutely still comes through in the recording. So especially if you listen on headphones, that sound is going to be coming through. But personally, I think this is one of the most compelling conversations yet. And Abby is also one of the sort of three main inspirations for this podcast. I really hope you'll be able to get through that. I think it's a great episode, and we talk about a lot of amazing stuff revolving around Lille Bønne, her business, and community building. So thanks so much for listening, and thanks for supporting Third Space Indy.
Hello, my name is Michael Zarick, and this is Third Space Indy. In this podcast, we talk to community builders, leaders, and others who are building up the neighborhoods they work in and doing their best to make Indianapolis as great as it can be. Today, I'm joined by Abby Reckard, who is a Fletcher Place native and is doing her very best to create a community space called Lille Bønne. She's also one of the main inspirations for this podcast. When I was laid off from my job, I was looking to maybe start my own business, and then I realized that Abby was doing it first. So that was really compelling to me, and I have since talked to her, and I'm talking to her again today. So hello, Abby. How are you doing?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Yeah.
It's very official.
I feel that way sometimes. So the reason I asked you on is very specifically because you're starting Lille Bønne, and I just, tell us a little bit about what that project is, a little bit about yourself as well, if you're up to it. Cindy.
Yeah, so Lille Bønne is coming soon. I feel like it's been coming soon forever. But the idea is we want to open this space in a really historic building in Fletcher Place that is, we're calling it a community living room. So essentially a gathering space for the neighborhood, for the community, not just of Fletcher Place and Pound Square and Bates Hendricks and those neighborhoods that are in proximity, but anybody who's traveling through, anybody who's coming by. But I, like so many folks, I think, have kind of reached my capacity on virtual gatherings. I think it's getting much better now in the last year or so, but COVID lockdown, I think, did a number on all of us, where we were so shut off from each other and so disconnected from real life and real community and connection. And I think it was like a perfect amalgamation of this space in Fletcher Place. So the building that we're working on feels like we'll be working on it in perpetuity, but it is one of the first buildings, not the very first, but one of the very first buildings erected in Fletcher Place. It's a little brick church that was built by Danish immigrants who settled there. And, for most of the life of this building, it's been a center of community. And when it went on the market about 2 years ago, I think it took me a little while to realize that I'm going to buy this building. Because for a long time, I was like, I wonder who's going to buy that, what it's going to be. And there's so many beautiful historic buildings in Indianapolis and so many that have been demolished, unfortunately. There's really cool books of historic architecture in Indianapolis that's no longer standing, which is so sad. Or churches that have been converted into apartment buildings or condos or Airbnbs, which is better than demolishing them, of course. But I felt so drawn toward this space in particular and using it for its original purpose, not necessarily religious, but community oriented, and a space for gathering and sharing ideas and connecting with people and helping each other and just building community. So that's a little nugget of what Lille Bønne is, but how that's actually going to play out. We're renovating the space to be equal price cafe and community center. So, I think there are very few places that anyone wants to go that you can't get food, at least me anyway. I feel like my entire social life is oriented around, ooh, where can we go get a good treat? So we'll have food, but we'll also have yoga and art classes and community events. We want to have like Sunday suppers for just family style gatherings, and speaking events and live music and a lot of things that like the library would have. I really want to use this as a space to kind of like return to doing things together in real life.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be such a novel concept, but it kind of feels like it is.
That's sort of like the whole thesis of this show is very much like we have reached a place where I feel like I call it, the term is like loneliness epidemic.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just a place where we as a society or neighborhoods or, as you get more and more microscopic are just like, we're even more individualistic.
Yeah.
And that's led us to a place of both loneliness, like misunderstanding, all of these things. And I feel like what you are doing with Lille Bønne is very much an attempt, although you've succeeded in many ways already, in my opinion, even though the building is still under construction, is an attempt to create a magnetic force and pull people together.
I love that, just imagery, because I think that's what I've learned, I think, over the last year of like the process of renovating the space and getting it, suited for what we want to do there. I think what I've learned in that time is, I went into this thinking like, I'm to create this space, or make this space available in our community that we're going to use to help build and create community. Of course, as a Fletcher Place resident, I've been there for the better part of 12 years now, 13 years. Like, the community already exists. Like, the people make the place, and like that's kind of our little slogan, Fletcher Place too, but it's true. The people make the place, and that community already exists, and has so many great spots to coalesce in the neighborhood. And I think maybe like a silver lining of the delays over the last year is just kind of me being able to get better plugged into the community that already exists. I feel like a lot of us, or at least speaking for myself, I think there's just this kind of like, I don't know, I felt kind of timid about like putting myself out there just as myself. Like, I don't really have much to offer. There's already this community that exists. It's hard to like insert yourself into something. Like, it takes me years to like warm up to a new place or a group of people, and I think having the not the excuse of Lille Bønne, but just to say like, okay, here I'm trying to do this, like let me do it with you, like let's work together. I mean, this has given me a little more confidence in that. But
it's like a mutual banner almost.
Yeah, but like the community exists, and I think that like getting more plugged into that community and like building trust with that community to say like, okay, this is what we want to do with this space. This is what we want Lille Bønne to be. This is how we want to pull this off. Getting to like better connect with neighbors and other businesses in the neighborhood and like kind of start to build this collaboratively, I think will just make it better for everyone in the long run. Because like when we started doing this, like over a year ago, the first step was reaching out to the community, because when we bought the building, we needed to rezone it or get a zoning variance to do what we wanted to do there, zone residential, because the city wanted it to be short-term rentals, which
Wait, really?
is a whole other thing. But
And it's not. I have been inside the building. You allowed me in, and you could maybe fit two
Right.
families.
yeah, well, or like an Airbnb or something.
Yeah.
So that process went really well, but the first step was going to the neighborhood and saying like, asking for a letter of support from the neighborhood association. So like early on, knocking on doors, getting petition signatures from folks in the neighborhood, presenting our case to the neighborhood association and saying like, hey, this is what we want to do with this space. I'm here, my family's here, like we want to put deep roots in Fletcher Place and like help it grow, and this is what we want to do. So I think like earning that community trust and like being a real meaningful part of the community, I think, is what kind of differentiates Lille Bønne from other businesses. Not that there aren't lots of businesses that are also already doing that, but that's my hope, is that people will see themselves reflected in the space and in the programming there, and that it will really feel like a center for community and not just a place or a business that like has some fun cool stuff, that like it will be like deep, meaningful connection is the goal anyway.
And in my opinion, it's funny that you say that, like you have that concern, because like I said previously, you have already done the work to build the community. Lille Bønne is just sort of like, that's almost like the end goal.
I think so, yeah.
You have already, and we'll talk about the specifics necessarily, but you have made events and you have, you've made friends and all of these things. And Lille Bønne is just sort of like, it's like your treehouse almost in your backyard. Yeah. But the building of the treehouse is it's like the lame thing. It's like, oh, the journey was the point.
Yeah, but I think it's so.
But
true.
You're there.
I think it's so true. And like a lot of that has really pulled me out of my comfort zone. Like I don't consider myself to be like a natural like I toe the line between introvert and extrovert. I feel like I can I can connect very deeply with people, but like I don't see myself as like a natural connector to just like go out there and like pull things and people together. Like knowing that is a requirement of this, and understanding that like, oh, if this is just a product of my vision, it's not going to be as good as it could be, as if it is a collaborative effort of people in the neighborhood, of course my other business partners. But I think it's been a learning curve and kind of humbling experience to realize like the what does this say? Like the sum is greater than the
I also don't know the saying.
Sum of its parts, whatever.
Yeah.
Like when we put all of us together, we can really build something much more beautiful than anything that any of us could do individually. And so I'm hoping that is the case with this, and I'm hoping that like I can get over some of my own personal fears and anxieties of like putting myself out there and asking for help. That's been a really hard thing. But I love your treehouse analogy, because so much of this, like the renovation process, even so far, like all we've really done is demo. Lots more to come, but like even that has like the day that we stripped the trappings of the previous congregation that was there and pulled up the stinky old carpet and like ripped out the baptismal pool. It was just like a ton of people that got together and kind of helped out and put on their work gloves and swung some sledgehammers, and it's been very cool to see the community already come together in support of building this thing and making it real. So
I sort of alluded to it, but like you've done some community events, including having some demolition, but you recently did is it called guerrilla?
Tactical urbanism.
Tactical urbanism. I like the word guerrilla. Tactical urbanism. And I unfortunately wasn't able to attend because I was sick. I was planning to, but could you tell me a little bit about that and like how it brought people together, what you did?
Yeah. So Fletcher Place Neighborhood Association partnered with Fountain Square, the Fountain Fletcher District Association, which is like the merchant economic development arm, and the city. DPW within, the city of Indianapolis has this division that's called Community Powered Infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So basically they want to hear from neighborhoods and community leaders of like, what do you need to improve the infrastructure in your neighborhood? Mostly focused on like pedestrian safety, walkability, bike infrastructure. We did, and the Fletcher Place group did a training program and a grant with the Indianapolis Neighborhood Resource Center, INRC, which is a great resource for neighborhoods, and placemaking and community development. We cobbled together a great many from all over the place and worked with the city to develop a plan for improving pedestrian safety on McCarty Street that's like right, where Lille Bønne is, between East and Virginia, and then Calvary Street that crosses 65-70 and connects Fletcher Place with North Square, and then some on the corner of Virginia and College. Basically, creating these bump outs to slow car traffic, and we worked with several local artists. I think 4 out of the 5 artists we worked with are in Fletcher Place and Fountain Square to design these murals that people came out and did basically like a paint by number for these murals designed by these local artists. So it was, this tactical urbanism, street art, art in the right of way kind of project that we combined with our annual neighborhood cleanup, where, folks just kind of gather early in the morning. Usually there's maybe 15 or 20 people that show up early and get their little gloves and their grabbers and just pick up trash in the park. And oh gosh, the other cool thing that we did on Calvary Street was create a protected bike lane with barriers that the month prior, folks in the community would come out and painted these barriers. So me and my little family had our paintbrushes on. My son's driving.
I think I saw this. I think I read.
So cool. So vastly improves pedestrian and bike safety, really creating a blueprint for more permanent infrastructure down the road. But we had 150 people show up.
Oh, I didn't know there was that many.
It was massive.
I saw the photos, but it didn't look like that.
And we were spread out all, so it was all down the whole stretch of McCarty. We had 6 murals all along McCarty, and then another couple on Virginia and College, and then the median across Calvary was painted. So folks spread out all over the neighborhood, just out there with rollers and paintbrushes and getting to participate in this big community art project. And as we were planning this event, we figured, well, if we're going to close the street down to paint, we might as well have a party afterwards.
Yeah.
So we had a block party. We had Dysfunction Brass Band out there, and a bounce house, and food trucks, and beer from Chili Water. We have so many good neighbors in Fletcher Place. Yeah, it was just such a cool community event, to see people come together and roll up their sleeves and get to work on improving the neighborhood, and then get to celebrate together afterwards. And there were so many people people who've lived in the neighborhood for a long time that I was meeting for the first time. I heard so many neighbors say oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't know you before.
Yeah, it's oh, you live 3 houses down,
right,
but I've never seen your face.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and just getting to I think there's something really powerful about contributing to something together, putting in the work together, seeing the end result of your hard work, and continuing to see that every day as you walk through a neighborhood. Every time I walk down to Calvin Fletcher and I cross the street and see all these murals, I'm we did that, and that's so cool. And I feel it creates a sense of pride in the neighborhood, improves safety and beautification, and the knowledge that we did this as a community, and just better connection with the people around you.
Have you just anecdotally, you don't have data yet, I would assume, but anecdotally, are cars going slower? Do you feel safer?
Yes. And we will collect data. That's part of the project. So last summer we were out there with speed guns. I felt I was in Super Troopers, just hiding behind cars and collecting their speeds. Yeah. So we counted volume of traffic and average speed. And so now we'll collect that same data again this summer and try to show improvements in reduced speeds. We were really hoping to get crosswalks. That hasn't happened yet.
See, that's where the guerrilla comes in. You just send it.
I'm ready to. I feel at this point it has to be somebody that's not so closely connected to the project. I don't know who did that.
That's what I said.
It wasn't me. You go out there and do it.
Just call me up.
Yeah. But so we will collect that data. But even like, so my son's bus, drops him off like right there. And the bus driver, like in the first day after these paintings, went out. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this is great! Like, what is this?" Like, and talked to her about it. She's like, "Yeah, this already feels better and safer. It's just like such a strong visual of like, hey, watch out, look out," because unfortunately, Indianapolis has had a ton of pedestrian deaths. You can't even. I think like last year they had. I don't even remember how many, but I think it's encouraging to see groups like Vision Zero and the city county council has adopted this plan to like help mitigate that and make our streets safer for people. So I think sometimes folks in charge forget that a city is made of people. And so getting to work on just like infrastructure projects like that and work alongside not just the people in our neighborhood, but like seeing all these neighborhoods kind of come together to create better neighborhoods. I think is what it's all about.
So we've alluded to it a couple times, and I'm really interested. It seems like every time you want to do something, the Lillebond, why is gorilla in my head? It's just fixing the streets, any of this type of stuff that is community focused, safety, fun, whatever. There is a deep amount of red tape. Have you experienced this, or is this maybe focus on Lillebond in this case? Like, what is the type of stuff that you've encountered building this space that you feel like you should not have encountered?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I'm an Aries, so I'm just going to do what I want regardless, which I think is what makes me a good fit for this type of work. I don't know. I love a challenge, and if something seems too easy, it feels like it's not really worth doing.
That's funny.
So, not that it shouldn't be easier to do this. I think
it seems like a community. Obviously, you are in an old building, so maybe there should be some red tape involved with that.
So,
but it seems like to start a business as small as yours, it should be like.
Yeah, and I think there are a few things to that. So I think like the first hurdle that we encountered, or it wasn't really even a hurdle, it was just like, okay, this is a thing we have to do, was the zoning variance. I had no idea what I was doing. Unfortunately, have like friends and people who helped a lot with that process. But like we went through the process that was like, the petitions and the letter of support from the neighborhood association. And when it came time for the zoning hearing, that like the city county council voted, the zoning board, it's not the council, but like the zoning board votes on, and the person in I don't even remember like all the departments and what they're called anymore.
There's probably 30 of them.
Hopefully I'll never have to do that again. It was a process. But like, I think zoning is so important, and like we could record a whole other podcast about the issues with like short-term rentals and Airbnbs, and like how it's just like the Wild West because there's like zoning regulations. You can't do anything about that. So I think zoning is important. It's what helps keep neighborhoods in control of their own
space or
and like the
vibe or whatever
of their community. Yeah, so I think zoning is really important. When we got to the hearing, we had been put on like the expedited ballot, which basically means that like everybody in the city was in support of our request, and so like didn't need to hear any comments, didn't need to like make our case. They're just like, yeah, this is good, we approve, go for it. So I think regulations are super important. I think the biggest issues have just been, and again, like this is I think universal, but just like money. I mean, I think it's so clear, it's been made clear that like if you aren't just like independently wealthy, everything is much more difficult. And just like the length of time that it takes to do any of this. When we got started and bought the building and we're starting renovation process, it was like, oh, it's gonna like take twice as long and cost twice as much as you think it's going to. And I thought, not for me, it's gonna be fun. And it's taken twice as long and costed twice as much. And I think like there are a lot of bad actors with a lot of money. and a lot of really well-intentioned people who want to do good work with not a lot of money. And I think like trying to figure out how to be successful in a project like this in spite of an economic system that isn't very conducive to that success. But there again, you know, like this is not the kind of thing that I could have done by myself unless I had like a shitload of money, which I don't.
But even then, you're spending the money to get help.
Right, so. Right. Like to help, well, you know, the money going to construction and architects and, you know, all of that. But I think like there is a way around that when you join together. I think like bringing on the business partners that I have in this, like there's no trust fund babies. There's, you know, we're also kind of like regular folks, but I think like, all right, like we all believe in this enough to really like put our literal money where our mouth is and like make an investment in this space and this idea and this community. I'm hoping to kind of resurrect it soon here once we have something to share with the building, but a crowdfunding campaign where this time last year, you know, we raised nearly $17,000 just from friends and family and the community. You know, we've had so many people volunteer to help with manual labor, you know, like, hey, when the time comes, like, I want to help Pete and I want to help do landscaping, like, how can we help? And so I think, like, we are so, I don't know, it seems like finances are often an insurmountable hurdle. Like, I can't afford to do this. I don't have the money to do this. And I think what I've found in this process is that, yeah, that's probably the case if you're trying to go it alone on something. And I think that is really unfortunate for a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are trying to start a business. The numbers don't add up. But I think the more people that you can bring in and the more you can kind of widen that circle of contributing, not just ideologically or like, hey, what do we want to see? Make it a reflection of what everybody wants for the community. And letting people help, whether it's financially or with time and talents. Like, I think that has been such a great growth edge for me because I'm not inclined to ask for help or to even really accept it. It's going to be better because more people have been involved. It's going to be possible because more people are involved financially. And like, if that means that like, it's not just up to me, then like, great, because that's probably better anyway. So I've had like so many great business partners, Will Loneman, Kristen Baxter, Phil Golovish, who have just been like friends and like colleagues and whatever for a long time. And, you know, they've all helped immensely. The neighborhood has helped immensely. So I don't know if that answers your question. I think most of the hurdles have been of a financial nature.
Well, you kind of answered it immediately, but you're sort of like the things I think maybe I would perceive as hurdles. You just perceive them as something to walk around.
Yeah.
You were like,
that's not that big of a challenge. I don't know. And I think that's like you have to be like a little bit,
which is impressive in its own way.
To do something like this.
You said this to me before.
And I think it's true. Like, I don't know. Like, I think all of this kind of comes from my own tendency to just say like, nah, those rules don't apply. Like, let's like adhere to the good rules and identify the ones that like don't make sense and just do it anyway. So
I am interested, you just because we kind of dance around the idea of zoning. Mm-hmm. I think this is a really big conversation in the U.S. right now, just because people want more locally focused things and not to live in a suburban hell. Do you think that there's like room, at least maybe, because I do agree zoning is important. You don't want a factory in the middle of in your beautiful neighborhood. Do you think there's like room for flexibility?
I think that I'm by no means a zoning expert. So like,
I'm not a lawyer.
Take all of this with a grain of salt.
Yeah, Jeffrey Tompkins, he's I'm talking to him soon. He's not a civil engineer, but he's like a designer, a civic designer, sort of.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote an article that said, like, if you want to build something, hire a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah. And I think that's like part of it is so many of these systems and regulations like that in theory are there to like make things better, protect us, keep things safe, don't always succeed in that. But I think in terms of zoning and flexibility, I think like what I take issue with is people that come into a neighborhood and think that because they have deep pockets, they can get what they want. I'm gonna look up his name so I get this wrong so I can call him out.
take him down.
Real asshole. There's a property owner in Indianapolis, I think mostly, and he's bought like several buildings in Beach Grove. Mirror Indy has covered this guy a couple of times. Dennis Brackenridge. So people like this who come up, buy up entire apartment buildings, immediately post eviction notices for dozens of residents because the HUD payments haven't come through. And I think like there are groups, there are people, there are businesses that want to come in, take up whatever space they can in a neighborhood, in a property, in a building, in a city, and use that for their own profit. I think that is what neighborhoods are wary of and cautious of, and I think we do live in a system where money often does equate to power, and if you have a lot of it, you can kind of throw your weight around and do whatever you want. Where there are protections and systems in place for neighborhood entities to say, we don't want this, or we do want this. And I think that's like zoning I'm not an expert on, but I think like the civic engagement that I've experienced in like the Fletcher Place neighborhood association, which I'm on the board of, like I think that is where, like that is the foundation of local government. That's like as local as you can get, just like your neighborhood. And when my husband and I first moved to, when we bought the house that we're in now, and we started going to neighborhood association meetings and realized like, oh my gosh, this is local government. Like at the neighborhood association meeting, they're voting on like land use, a proposed land use amendment for like some building, and like some person who bought this building, what they want to do with it, but the neighborhood gets to say like, no, we're not cool with that, so we're not going to support that. And then most of the time that's not, you need the support of a neighborhood. So I would say like if you live in a place that has an active neighborhood association, that would be like democratic neighborhood association, that is where you can participate in those decisions about like what happens in your neighborhood, what changes are made, what kinds of new businesses can open, or what kinds of new construction can happen. And if you feel passionately about things that are happening that you don't like, or things that you want to see happen that aren't happening, get involved in the neighborhood level, because that is where I think you can make really meaningful change. You're not several layers disconnected from the actual decision makers. Like you are a decision maker. Like if you are a dues paying member of a neighborhood association, you get a vote in whether or not your neighborhood chooses to like put its weight behind something. Yeah. So I have found that really inspiring about Fletcher Place, and I'm sure there are loads of other neighborhoods who are operating the same way.
Yeah. I think Meridian Kessler, also has sort of a very strong-willed group of people. Mm-hmm. I think some people maybe out on the outside or even on the inside might think they're a little bit too strong-willed in one way or the other. But I like the way you answered, is that like it should be the will of the people, effectively. It's like the people should get what they want.
Yeah, and I think Wilson is the people who live in a place. Like businesses can be, and often are, like just as important and part of like the fabric of a neighborhood. I know the ones in Fletcher Place certainly are, but that's because they're part of the community, and they invest just as much into the people there as they expect people or hope that people will come and support their business. it's such like a reciprocal relationship. And so I think like we see some hubris in investors coming into a neighborhood or businesses trying to come into a neighborhood and think that they can just show up and do what they want without hearing the needs and wants of the community that they're coming into.
The Fletcher Place smackdown.
That's right. That's right. Not here.
There's a joke. Someone I follow is always like, we should resolve political arguments with like a wrestling match or something. It's like, if that guy you mentioned earlier wants to come in and build apartments or like move people out, like he needs to beat our strongest champion.
Yep. I like that.
Great. So I enjoy Fletcher Place. It takes me a while to get there.
Yes.
It's like 30 minutes from where I live on the north side, 25, whatever, a decent amount of time. I'm lucky that I can take the red line. So if I turn my brain off and I just want to, I really like going to Calvin Fletcher. Since you introduced me to it, it's easily the best coffee shop in the city.
So good.
I need to try some other places, but it's still consistently the best in my opinion. Where in Fletcher Place would you take me if I was hanging out? If you're bought in, I think I'm bought in, maybe. I mean, I really like a lot of places in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis is a great city.
And as I'm supposed to be a neutral bystander on this podcast, I'm just hype up everywhere. So, like, where are you taking me if I'm going to Fletcher Place? Obviously, Calvin Fletcher's on the list. That's a coffee shop.
Obviously, Calvin Fletcher.
Where else?
Yep. The park. Edna, Balz, Lacy Park. It's got bocce courts. It's got playgrounds.
What's it called again? Sorry.
Edna, Balz, Lacy Park.
Edna, Balz, Lacy.
Edna, Balz, Lacy Park. There's always a temptation to call it Balz. Edna, Balz. Usually we'll say Lacy Park. It's such a asset to the community.
Is that the big one by the church or the Catholic school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's right on like East and McCarty, south of Holy Rosary Catholic Church. Yeah, there's just always something cool going on. We have Italian Fest there in June. Any given day, you can find people just like grandkids with their dogs. I don't know if people still do it, but like just like a dog meetup in the park. People just we're meeting here at 6 o'clock with all our dogs and we take our kids to play on the playground there all the time. It's just a great little sanctuary in the neighborhood. So right next to Calvin Fletcher shares kind of like a courtyard right on Virginia on the cultural trail with this courtyard with Bluebeard and Amelia's make up the 3 businesses on the sides of this courtyard. And it's like it feels like a little piazza in Italy or something.
I do agree.
Like, it's just like where you can go and count on seeing somebody or like the rare time that you don't, like just outside and breathe for a while, do some work on a nice day. It's just like such a lovely little gathering space for the community.
The guy who owns Bluebeard and Amelia's, he owns both. He told me that Amelia's was inspired by a bakery in Louisville.
Okay, cool.
Called the Blue Dog Bakery. So I was thinking about that. I just think it's funny that that guy, I think he owns a lot of things.
Batista,
He's on my list of people to talk to.
He's done so much.
But Amelia's is lovely. Bluebeard, I hear, is lovely. I haven't gone in yet. I know you hype it up. What are the I'm a huge restaurant head.
Well, Bluebeard I think is like the best restaurant in the city. Milktooth, when they opened, gosh, however long ago that was.
That's a breakfast spot, right?
Yeah, breakfast and brunch. Won so many awards and it's so good. This is, I don't know like how official it is yet, but it's definitely happening. So La Margarita just closed their Fountain Square location. They're opening up in the factory yards, but they're also opening a new, moving to where Aroma used to be in Fletcher Place.
We tried to go to La Margarita, and the day we went was like the day it closed. No. I swear, I'd never been there.
Well, it's coming back.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's coming back. 2 new locations, so that's really exciting. We love La Marg. Bosphorus.
Oh my God, that's like the peak of my list.
It's so good.
Because it's so far south. I haven't gone, but I love.
Well, it's literally like
Turkish
3
food
blocks from Calvin Fletcher.
Yeah.
It's So that was like, that restaurant has been there since before like any of the others. It's been there, gosh, I think like 2007 or 2008. My brother had actually just gotten back from a semester abroad in Istanbul.
Oh, really?
And so like, we were like, oh, let's go check out. There's supposed to be this new Turkish restaurant. Like, I think it's kind of close to downtown. I don't know. So like, we went there in 2008. And there was like nothing else going on in this neighborhood. And I remember going, and my brother was like, oh yeah, this is like really authentic Turkish food. This is so good. We talked to the owners, like they're from Istanbul. This is really good, but like, what is this neighborhood? Like, where are we? And now, like, however many years later.
So what is like, I don't know how to ask this, other than Lille Bønne, what's next for Fletcher Place?
For Fletcher Place, I think there's a lot of excitement and energy around community partnerships that we've done with other neighborhoods and like tactical urbanism, and kind of recognizing like how much collective power we have.
It's gone to your head a little bit.
Yeah, like, oh, we can make shit happen. But I think even everybody in the neighborhood, we have, you know, again, our neighborhood association is really active right now, and I think it's, you know, I've heard a lot of other neighbors like, this is cool to see like stuff actually getting done, and it feels like we've got a group of people who are like really actively invested in making positive change happen. I don't know, I'm a firm believer in like, you can't change the world, but you can change a little corner of the world, and I think that we're trying to do that, and have a group of people who are trying to do that. Indianapolis more broadly, you know, there are so many conversations around like the creative economy, and like really highlighting like creative lines of work, and even just like bringing creativity into your everyday life. Like I love the work that Gang and Pattern are doing around this, and that, you know, plenty of others. But I think that like we're kind of realizing like there are no credentials required for starting something or having an impact or making a difference. Like, you can just kind of get together with your neighbors and say like, oh, what do you think about this? What should we do about this? Within the neighborhood association, within the connections with other neighborhoods, we're working on obviously like infrastructure, but also, you know, kind of trying to keep homes and residences for families. Not can-worthy in terms of housing and stuff, but like housing is a big part of it.
You know, don't feel pressure to answer. Are you into like more denser housing? I think I asked you this before.
I think
not in the middle of your neighborhood, but there's space around there.
Oh, I mean, like housing density, I think is like what makes a neighborhood or a city accessible for people of varying incomes. And yeah, I think density is super important, and that's something that we've talked about as a neighborhood before, is like, how can we make sure that Fletcher Place isn't inaccessible? Property values are rising, and that's a good thing for the people who have, you know, own houses here, but we don't want it to mean that new people can't move in. We want to make sure that we've got like a wide range of available housing, and that people aren't being kicked out of their apartments because the landlord has decided to turn them into short-term rentals instead of long-term rentals. You know, I don't think we've really identified exactly what the right next step there is, but I think just having a conversation, hearing from neighbors, you know, what their concerns are. So yeah, I think, you know, there's infrastructure work that we're doing, and housing affordability work that we're doing, and even like air quality. Like, I was at a public meeting last week with a bunch of neighbors, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, who issues, you know, permits for companies that want to increase their emissions and all that jazz. And so like, we have a neighborhood that's really paying close attention to what's going on around us, and like at least participating in those conversations. I think so often people think that I can't change anything, so I won't even show up. But I think it's been encouraging for me at least to see how many people are showing up, at least to pay attention. And when you recognize that there are a lot of people that care about the same things that you do, and that want the same things that you do, it feels a little bit more empowering and hopeful to advocate and fight for those things. And I think there's a lot of that happening in Fletcher Place right now, and in the whole city, and in neighborhoods all over the country. I think we are recognizing our collective power slowly but surely, and
let's hope. Are you on your neighborhood board?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that checks out.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can wrap up.
Okay.
Just as we're going not long on time, but we're reaching there.
We've got
But I told you earlier, I have a question from the previous guest.
Okay. Oh gosh.
It's not that crazy, but it will. It's just, it says, Kate Grimm, who was the previous guest. She said, who would win in a fight, the big skeleton at Newfields or the big statue in the square?
Big statues. What's the big statue in the square?
That's all she said. I'm assuming.
Big statue in the square. I know Funky Bones at Newfields.
See, I didn't know either one, so I felt a little left.
I guess if I don't know the other one, it's probably losing, right? Like if I don't know who this is.
Maybe I should have done due diligence and research. Maybe like, what if all of the statues at the, I'm going to use the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. Like, what if all the people in that monument started to animate?
It's a circle.
I know.
It's famously a circle.
What is this? Have I failed?
Statue in the square. I don't know. But I'm going to go Monkey Bones.
Okay.
I'm going to go Monkey Bones.
See, she mentioned the skeleton and I didn't even know what it was. I totally failed as an Indianapolis resident.
That's fine. That's fine. So Funky Bones is like this big, it's like a skeleton that's like laying flat on the ground.
Yeah.
And you can like jump across on the bones. And it was featured it was actually a replica that was built in Pittsburgh, where the Fault in Our Stars was filmed. You know, it's set in Indianapolis by our native John Green. So yeah, it's in the like 100-acre woods, which I think they're calling like the Virginia Beach Fairbanks Art and Nature Park, but you know, kind of like Deer Creek or whatever we still call it, 100-acre woods.
It's the same thing. It's like, there's like a shopping center in Louisville I still call the Summit, even though it's been called the Paddock for like 15 years.
Yeah. Well, this is what it's always going to be. So yeah, I guess I have to go with Funky Bones.
So it goes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll text you if I figure out what the other statue is, and I'll get the updated answer and patch it in.
Okay.
But it sounds like you're passionate about Funky Bones.
I mean, what I am passionate about is like art and placemaking, and I think that, so actually I was in college doing a semester in Italy, and it was for like a Renaissance art history class. We had to write about like contemporary commissioned art, and like the 100-acre woods, whatever, Newfields Art and Nature Park was like in progress at that time. And so it was really cool to get a chance to like research that, and you know, it was happening like in my hometown, and to kind of see like, okay, like all this commissioned work like going into this like community art space, like interactive art.
What's the best spot other than Newfields, maybe, because it's an art museum? Like, where do I go seek out art? It's obviously everywhere. Like we talked about Megan Jefferson, you know, she's got murals everywhere.
I mean, the Harrison Center has been doing it so well.
That's on my
for so
list.
long. They are the ones that kind of, I think, started the First Friday thing that happens all over the city now, of like open galleries, and they do so much good, like, yeah, experiential, interactive, like community-based art, placemaking. The Harrison Center, and I think like Factory Arts, like they have so many artist studios. Like if you go to First Friday there's always like cool new stuff happening. Big Car, they're working on like a new art museum down there in Garfield Park, and they have community art spaces and artist residences, and I think there's just like a lot of groups that are really heavily investing in community art and placemaking, and so yeah, Indianapolis feels like just such a good obvious fit for something like Lille Bønne. It's like, you know, as much as ego would like to think that like, oh, I'm like doing this new thing that nobody's ever done before, and like as so many people are out here doing it already, and like there's so many good examples to draw from and inspiration to draw from of like people right here in Indianapolis who have been doing this sort of thing for a really long time.
There's no unique ideas.
No, nothing new under the sun, truly.
We referred to the last podcast at the Stutz, and I was really impressed to learn about the sort of art support
Yeah.
to do there. I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. It's a really neat space for art and artists.
Yes, the steps is another. Yeah.
So I thought that was neat as well. Great. One last question.
Okay.
What is your question for the next person? It does not have to be about third spaces or, giant statue battles.
Yeah,
It can be about whatever you'd like.
When are you recording? So it's like some timeliness to the thing that I think of.
Not really. I think the next recording is next week.
Okay.
But we may reschedule. We'll see.
Okay, so my question then is like, how many games is it going to take the Pacers to beat the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals? Are we gonna win it? Are we gonna?
Actually, that time I hope will work out. I like you're not leaving room for them to lose either.
It's like how many to win? Are we gonna sleep in 4? Is it gonna go to Game 7?
Now, when the episode releases, will not be timely, but that's okay.
But this is the energy I'm putting out into the world right now. Is just Pacers domination all the way.
I think they got it.
I think they do. So you didn't grow up here, but let me say, the last time the Knicks faced the Pacers, or Pacers faced the Knicks, more aptly said, in the Eastern Conference Finals was like when I was a kid with like Reggie Miller and Rick Smits, Patrick Ewing, like it was epic. And I feel like I can, like my heart, like I'm already getting like hot and like worked up about it. Like there will not be a peaceful moment in this city for however long that series lasts.
That's so funny.
We're all real hyped.
So I'm not giant on sports, but I will say, and this is really important to me because this ties into this podcast, is that I lived in Arkansas for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And in Northwest Arkansas, actually the entire state, they don't have any professional sports. Yeah. So the entire state is behind the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Okay.
The University of Arkansas.
Okay.
When I lived in Arkansas, I became a sports fan because of this. Because this giant community force of the Arkansas Razorbacks was infectious. When the Razorbacks were winning, everyone was happy and smiling, and the Razorbacks were losing, everyone was in a bad mood. And I find that so compelling. As someone who, again, like, football is really hit or miss for me. Right. Basketball can be fun. I think my go-to sport is soccer, but it's building up. Mm-hmm, But I think this sort of emotional force that is sports. I always think about my stepfather, who his entire mood was dictated by U of L winning or losing in Louisville. I just think it's so interesting as like a community effort of you're not a direct participant in this sports game, but you also are. Exactly. That's what I love about sports. And
one more plug for Fletcher Place. One of the best places, one of the best bars that I've ever gone to watch a Pacer game is the Dugout. The Dugout has been around since like 1954. It's like an OG dive bar, and like, ooh, it's a fun place.
It's also
watch sports.
Very well priced, in my opinion. It's not expensive.
Yeah, right? Well, and they've done such a good job. Like, it's had new ownership since, I don't know, like 5+ years ago. And they've expanded a ton. But they still have, like, the original little section that hasn't changed since, like, I don't know, the 80s. Like, it's just, like... It's such a good.
It's a great bar.
And then the other section that feels like really new, and then like live music at stage and like the patio. So it feels like 3 or 4 bars in one. But like, go to the old side, go to the original side. Watch the Pacers, and then because what is it, Gainbridge? I can never remember what it's called. It's just like a half mile from there. Like it's like the next if you cross over, go up Virginia, you're right there. So
you know that. Is it? I think it's this week or the next week. Game 3 is like the most dangerous day of the year in Indianapolis because it's the Indy 500. It's game 3 of the Pacers and the Nets. And the Phoenix Nets.
Brooklyn.
Thank you. I'm not a sports guy. And Fever is also playing on that day. So there's a triple threat on that day.
Oh, what a day.
Don't drive through downtown.
Exciting.
Don't drive through Speedway. You will just stay home.
Stay put. Ride your bike.
Do the Pacers have like a chant or a cheer, or is it just like go Pacers? There's the yes sirs. That's the new thing.
Right now.
I like that actually.
Nice. I like it too. Yeah.
Yes, apostrophe CERS, sirs. Oh, that was funny.
But they're such a fun team, and I am a basketball person. Like, I remember I was like in the 4th grade, and I was like determined to be the first one to play in the NBA, and I was gonna like be on the Pacers team. And my initial reaction to the WNBA for me was like, what the hell? That's not fair. Like, why can't we just play with the men? Which is like, no, whatever. It's fine. It's good.
There's a long
It's
conversation
good.
about this.
Yeah,
You can
good.
have talking about having other podcasts. There's a whole podcast.
My initial reaction as like a 10 or 11-year-old was like, wait a minute. But they're a good team. They're just so fun to watch. They play together so well. They've got such good chemistry.
I will say they need to work on their rebounding. That's my beef.
Well, yeah, they're a high-powered offense, like not a great defense. Everyone knows this, but so far they've made it work.
All right.
So.
Well, go Pacers.
Go Pacers.
Against the Knicks.
The Knicks.
Not the Nets.
Not the Nets.
Okay, this is my last thing. New York. Knicks, Nets, Jets.
They all won. I know. Yeah. They've got, and then a lot of them too.
And then obviously have the Yankees, but that's
White Sox or
White Sox is Chicago. I know that much.
Yeah. Mets.
Mets,
Nets.
Nets,
There it
Jets,
is.
Knicks,
That's a really good
and the Yankees.
Yeah.
Why are they like this? Change the name.
I mean, let's not go down far.
All right. Well, thank you, Abby, for joining me.
Thank you so much.
This has been Third Space Indy. Thanks for listening. See you next time. And I'm gonna give you a high five.
Bye.
That's how I'm ending all my podcasts.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Third Space Indie. If you want to find Abby or Lille Bønne down in Fletcher Place, you can go to lillebon.com. It's kind of hard to spell, so there will be a link to that in the show notes. You can find those at thirdspaceindy.com. You could also follow along at Third Space Indie on Instagram, where I post small clips, content, assorted things like that. And you can also reach out to me through Instagram in the DMs or thirdspaceindy@gmail.com. Please send me your thoughts, feelings, and ideas. I want to hear from you. Thank you, as always, to the local artist Chinison for lending me her song Scared Rabbit. It's featured as the main theme song for Third Space Indie. And thank you so much for listening. I hope to share the next episode of Third Space Indie with you. Have a great day.